I remember one time I was talking about my comic with a guy who lived in my dormitory. Like he lived in the dormitory hall, or whatever. And I remember I was telling like what I was planning to do with the story and how I was gonna do the characters and stuff. And like he kept on suggesting ideas. He was like, "You could do this, you could do that." And while I'm open-minded to ideas for my story, like I don't think I have everything perfect. It made me just think to myself, why don't you just write your own story? Because it got to the point where I was like, this guy just keeps on going off about these like things I could add to my story where it's like you could just make your own fully developed story, right? And it made me think to myself, like later on, like this week, like this was a while ago when this happened, this was like a year ago. I was like, ideas are low key kind of worthless. Now, don't get me wrong, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with having good ideas, of course. But when you really think about it, does it really matter? And the reason why I say that is because it's like execution is what matters. Like anyone can come up with good ideas. Like I feel like we place way too much value on people having a good idea rather than having a good execution, which I know seems like very like, well, duh, like obviously you got to execute it. But like I feel like so often, right? I'll talk to people who they have great ideas for a story. They'll tell me about how they want to do this with their story and they want to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, okay, write the story. Because at the end of the day, it's like ideas are just that. They're just thoughts in our head. You know, I can think of the best way to make a cake, but until I make an actual cake, all that is just like a random thought. Like it's no different than the guy thinking, I should eat a sandwich today. It's like thinking of eating a sandwich is not the same thing as actually eating the sandwich. Yet sometimes I feel like we think that that means something, that we place value on the fact that, oh, this person thought of this good idea. It's like, look, anyone can come up with good ideas. One thing I want to be in my life is not someone who just has good ideas, but someone who execute. Because like one thing I'm kind of learning in this season of my life is how much I'm like, dang, I have all these story ideas that I tell people, but where's like the action? Now, of course, I do implement a lot of the story ideas that I've come up with for my stories. Like my one Grim Reaper comic that I'm planning to release on Webtoon. I had one chapter where it was about like a criminal, right, who gets executed. And there's more to the story than that, but it's an idea I thought for a while. And this kind of reminds me of something that what's his face? Stephen King said, where like he said he doesn't keep an idea notebook because he believes that if something's a good idea, it will stick with you. And I don't know if I completely believe that in every case, because I remember I brought this up to someone and they were like, well, I wish I had that good of a memory because there are some people who have terrible memory. So like the idea may not stick with you. But I do think that is relevant to my life where like I have a lot of good ideas and these ideas stick with me because I'm meant to write them down. But like we place so much value on, oh yeah, this person has a great idea. Like here's this idea. Like the guy who was telling me about all these story ideas. And it's like, look, dude, that's cool, but how am I going to implement that? Or like how come you don't implement that? Because anyone can throw at the wall ideas, but like what matters is the execution, which I know I keep on saying that, but it's kind of like the same way with criticism, where this is my hot take. This might get me in trouble, but I will always think that even the best critic is inferior to the worst artist. And what I mean by that is that someone who actually tries to do something is always at a greater level of achievement than someone who just critiques something. Now, that isn't to say that critics are inherently bad or anything, that I think, screw the critics, I think that's bad. But it's mostly to say that, like, I feel like we think that it's so important that we can just say things rather than doing. Because I will always place emphasis on what we do. Because, like, yeah, you know, anyone can preach of good morals, but to actually live them out, you actually, that's more important. Because, like, you know, with this YouTube channel, like, I'll tell you about what I feel about the world, but, like, I make honest, I'm not always doing the things that I say that I should do. And I try to be honest with them and say, hey, you know, I'm trying to do this. I'm not perfect at this idea. Because like it is so easy to preach of good ideas, to preach of good morals, but it's so much harder to actually live them out. And I don't want to be that guy who just like, wow, you really have great ideas, Alma. Like wow, you're such an idea guy. Like, what is the value of really having good ideas. Like, really think about it. I don't think it has any values. Like, on paper, Star Wars is probably a good idea, but like, what makes Star Wars a good movie or like a franchise that people love is the fact that like it came to fruition, that it came out of George Lucas's mind and it stopped being something that he just kept in his head. And I find so often we get so comfortable with sharing ideas rather than actually doing them. Because, like, to a certain degree, I think we should shut up. Like, and what I mean by that is like we should shut up about doing something and actually do it, which I know it seems obvious, but like a lot of people don't have that ability to recognize that, hey, this is kind of worthless. Like, I need to actually do something with my life. Like, I've been talking about how I need to learn Spanish, but like, I can talk about that all I want, but what I actually need to do is work on learning Spanish. And I will. But again, saying that you will is not as valuable as actually doing it. So, this is just a random thought I had in my mind. Because you know, it's so funny with this video, I was thinking to myself, man, I should make a video about this. And I had another thought in my head, then do it. Like, stop stop thinking that this would be a good idea and actually execute it. So that's just my opinion. I hope you guys have a great day. If you like my content, you can like and subscribe or leave a comment, whatever you want. But I'll talk to you guys later.